In the quiet village of Umuagu, surrounded by hills and the gentle sounds of nature, lived a curious young girl named Adayeze. Her eyes were bright like the morning sun, and she was full of energy, like the stream that flowed through the village. Adayeze wasn't just any child, she was a girl with big dreams. Her father, Obina, was a man everyone respected, not because he was rich, but because he was wise. He wore simple clothes and walked calmly, like someone who was always at peace, but his mind was full of great ideas and deep thoughts. Obina had once dreamed of becoming a doctor, but life had led him down a different path. Yet he carried no bitterness. Instead, he poured all his dreams and ambitions into Adaize, his only daughter. Each night, as the moonlight filtered through the palm-thatched roof of their home, he would sit beside her and tell her stories, not of fairy tales, but of possibilities. My Adaizi, he would begin, his deep voice a comforting melody. I know you want to be a doctor, but you will also learn the ways of trade, of investment, and of ownership. Remember, profit is better than wages. Adaizi didn't understand it fully at first. She would repeat it to herself as she played with her dolls, lining them up like patients in a clinic. Profit is better than wages, she'd mutter, pretending to hand them little medicine bottles made from old bottle caps. Her mother, Nena, would chuckle, often calling out from the kitchen, "That child, she's already dreaming big." But Obina wasn't simply filling his daughter's head with lofty ambitions. He backed his words with action. When she turned 7, he gave her a small wooden box. Inside were cowries, old coins, and a few crisp naira notes. "This is your first capital," he told her. "We'll start small. What can you do with this?" Adaize thought hard. With her father's guidance, she bought oranges from the village market and squeezed them into juice. During the dry season, when thirst was common and cool drinks were rare, she sold the juice to travelers and villagers alike. The profits weren't much at first, but her joy was boundless. She was learning, growing, and most importantly, believing. Every evening after her schoolwork, she would sit with Obina, recounting her sales and counting her earnings. He taught her to separate her capital from her profit and to keep records, however simple. He explained the importance of saving and reinvesting. And through it all, he never stopped reminding her profit is better than wages. This principle took root deep in Adaize's young heart. Her mind began to see the world differently, not just as it was, but as it could be. Her education in school was matched by the lessons she learned at home. While her peers played carefree, Adaize played with purpose. In Umuagu, many people began to notice. They saw the little girl with big ideas and a determined gaze. Some laughed, others applauded, but Obina stood firm. One day, he said to Nena, our daughter will rise. She will not just follow a path, she will create one. And so the seed was planted. With each passing day, it was watered by love, discipline, structure, and dreams. Adaizi's journey had begun, not just toward a career in medicine, but toward a life of wealth, wisdom, and unwavering purpose. By the time Adaize turned 10, she had already established a reputation in Umuagu as a serious-minded child. Her teachers at school praised her brilliance, not only in science and math, but also in her ability to solve real life problems. Yet, it wasn't just her academic skills that made her stand out. It was her hunger to understand life, how things worked, how money flowed, how decisions shaped destiny. Her father's evening lessons continued, but they became more complex. Obina introduced her to stories of great African entrepreneurs, men and women who built empires from humble beginnings. He taught her to observe the traders in the market, to ask questions, to listen more than she spoke. You see, Mama Uche, Obina pointed one day as they passed the busy market. She started selling just groundnuts. Now she has 5 shops across 2 towns. She reinvested her profits. She didn't spend everything she made. Adaeze took mental notes everywhere she went. She began asking her teachers about economics and entrepreneurship. Some were surprised. You want to be a doctor? Yes? They'd ask. Yes, she would reply. But I also want to own a hospital. At home, she expanded her juice selling venture. With a bit more capital from her growing savings, she added coconut snacks and began packaging them in plantain leaves for hygiene and beauty. Her branding was simple, but people started calling her Adaz, the little madam. Still, her life wasn't all business. Adazi played with her cousins, danced during festivals, and helped her mother in the kitchen. But her mind was always thinking. She would look at the farmland behind their house and wonder how to make it more productive. Obina noticed and began another lesson. Land is wealth, my daughter, and knowledge of how to use it is power. He showed her how to grow tomatoes and yams, how to measure profit after expenses, and how to plan for seasons. Adaizi's weekends became filled with both fun and learning. It was a balanced life, yet far ahead of her peers in intention and insight. Her relationship with her father deepened. They were more like partners than just father and daughter. Nena, while proud, often warned Obina not to put too much pressure on Adaeze. Let her be a child too, she would say. Obina always responded gently. She's a child now, but the world will not treat her like one forever. Let her learn while the stakes are small. As the years went by, Adaeze began to dream in blueprints. She wrote down ideas in a little notebook she kept under her pillow, business plan, sketches of a hospital with a vegetable farm beside it, and even ways to provide jobs to other children. By the end of primary school, Adaeze had saved enough to fund her secondary school needs. Obina only topped up when necessary. He smiled the day she showed him her savings ledger. You're already becoming a woman of wealth, Adaeze. Remember, profit is better than wages. That mantra was now etched into her soul, not just as words, but as a way of life. Secondary school marked a new chapter in Adaeze's life. She was no longer the little girl running around the market or squeezing oranges behind her mother's kitchen. She now wore a navy blue uniform, walked the longer path to the township school, and mingled with students from various backgrounds. But her values never changed. On her first day, she stood out not only because she answered every question the teachers asked, but because she brought a cooler of snacks and juice, products she had carefully made and packaged the night before. Her classmates were first amused, then amazed. Some teased, Dr. Sella, you're mixing hospital with hustle. But others were impressed. She sold out before the lunch break. And by the end of the first week, Adaise had not only made new friends, but also secured daily customers. Despite her success, Adaise faced her first major test that term. The demands of academics began to clash with her business activities. Her grades dipped slightly, and Obina noticed. One evening, as they sat outside under the moonlight, he spoke gently. My daughter, the balance is the key. You cannot pour water into 2 cups at once without spilling. Your studies must not suffer. Adaeze nodded. She understood the weight of her father's words. With careful planning, she restructured her schedule, reduced her product line, and recruited a cousin from the village to help with weekend production. That decision taught her another lesson: delegation and teamwork. By her second year, she had learned to draft budgets, track profit margins, and manage time effectively. Her teachers began to notice her growth, not just academically, but as a leader, she was appointed class prefect and later student business club president. The local newspaper in the township even featured her in an article titled The Teenage Tycoon. Obina kept a copy and framed it on the wall of their home, but not all moments were smooth. There were days when customers complained, supplies ran out, or classmates mocked her ambition. Adaize had to learn resilience. She had to rise even when tired and believe even when doubted. Obina continued to mentor her, but he gradually stepped back, allowing her to make decisions and even mistakes. It is your life to live, he would say, and even in failure, there is profit if you learn. By the end of secondary school, Adaizi had saved enough to pay for her university application and part of her first year fees. Her small business had grown into a mini brand in the region. More importantly, her dream to become a doctor had not faded. It had expanded. Now she wanted to build a network of clinics, support rural healthcare, and mentor other young girls. The girl from Umuagu was on a mission. Her journey was far from over, but she was walking it with purpose, faith, and her father's voice echoing in her heart. Profit is better than wages. University life brought Adaize to a bustling city miles away from her village. She had gained admission to study medicine at one of the country's top institutions, a dream fulfilled, yet one that demanded every ounce of discipline, sacrifice, and commitment. The campus was vibrant, competitive, and filled with brilliant minds. But unlike many of her peers, Adaize came with more than ambition. She came with vision. The first few months were challenging, the lectures were intense, the practicals exhausting, and the long nights in the library drained her energy. She missed the gentle rhythms of Umuagu and the quiet evenings of learning with her father. Still, she pressed on, determined to honor the sacrifices her family had made. Her roommate, Chinyere, was a free-spirited girl from a wealthy home. At first, their lifestyles clashed. Adaise was frugal, focused, and always calculating. Chinyere, though kind-hearted, was carefree with her spending. One day, Adaise caught her tossing away leftover food that could have fed two. "You're too serious," Chinyere would often tease. But slowly she began to see Adaize's way of thinking in a different light. During one of the university breaks, Adaize returned home not to rest, but to revive her small business. She saw an opportunity in the growing trend of natural skincare products and spent her holiday experimenting with formulas made from local ingredients: shea butter, turmeric, coconut oil, and aloe vera. With the help of her cousin, she created samples and tested them among friends and family. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Back at school, she launched the brand officially, Ada Glow Naturals. Using the little savings she had, she designed simple labels and built a page on social media. Her first set of orders came from her classmates and lecturers. In time, word spread beyond the campus. Managing both medical school and a business was not easy. There were times when she considered pausing one for the other. But every time she felt overwhelmed, she remembered Obina's voice. Profit is better than wages. It wasn't about abandoning her dream of becoming a doctor. It was about ensuring she had more than one stream of income, more than one door of opportunity. She created a study and work timetable, hired two part-time staff from her hostel community, and started attending entrepreneurship seminars on weekends. It wasn't long before she was invited to speak at one. Her topic, how to build a business while pursuing a career. Adaise had grown into a role model. Even Chinyere, who once teased her for being too serious, became her business partner, handling logistics and marketing, while Adaise focused on production and strategy. During one semester break, she returned to Umuago to surprise her parents. Obina wept quietly as she handed him a brand new wrapper and a pair of leather sandals she had bought with her earnings. Papa, she said, your lessons were my greatest investment. Obina held her hands tightly. You are the proof, Adaeze, the proof that dreams watered by discipline will bear fruit. And what do we say? She smiled, her voice strong. Profit is better than wages. As she neared her final year of medical school, Adais began working on her biggest idea yet, a health and wellness center that would offer not just medical services, but also natural beauty treatments, nutrition advice, and empowerment training for young girls. It was her way of combining everything she loved into one lasting legacy. The path was long and the days were tiring, but Adaizi's heart was full. Every patient she studied, every bottle she labeled, every speech she gave, it was all part of a greater calling. She was becoming the woman her father had envisioned, not just a doctor, not just an entrepreneur, but a beacon of hope, resilience, and purpose. Graduation day arrived with a flurry of emotions. Adaizi stood in her white coat, surrounded by fellow graduates, tears in her eyes as the national anthem echoed through the auditorium. She was now officially Dr. Adaize Obina, a title earned through sleepless nights, relentless study, and unwavering faith. Her parents, seated proudly in the front row, beamed with joy. Obina held Nena's hand tightly, his heart swelling with pride. As the applause faded and the celebrations began, Adaise quietly slipped away to a quieter corner of the campus. She took out her notebook, the one she had kept since childhood. It was tattered, its pages filled with scribbles, budgets, and dreams. She opened it to the first page. I want to be a doctor. I also want to be rich and help others. Now she was both. The months that followed were a whirlwind. While many of her colleagues rushed to apply for residency placements in city hospitals, Adaise took a different route. She applied for a part-time post at a community clinic, but spent most of her energy on launching her long-envisioned project, the Ada Care Center. It started as a modest building on the outskirts of the city, a refurbished bungalow surrounded by a small garden. Inside, Adaize created a space that felt more like home than a hospital. It had a general clinic, a natural skincare studio, a nutrition counseling unit, and a reading corner where young girls could learn about health, hygiene, and entrepreneurship. Her model was unique. Patients paid modest fees, but many services were subsidized through the profits from her growing line of natural products. I became a doctor, not just to treat illness, but to inspire healing in people, in communities, in systems. And I became an entrepreneur, not just for profit, but for purpose. Her voice grew steadier. Your background is your soil, but you are the seed. You can grow into anything if you dare to rise. I was taught that profit is better than wages. Today, I tell you, legacy is better than luxury. Use your hands to build and your heart to lead. The applause was thunderous. After the event, dozens lined up to meet her. Some brought gifts, others brought stories, all brought hope. Daisy drove home that night under a sky full of stars. Her mind drifted to her father, now retired, but still full of wisdom. She made a mental note to visit him the next weekend. When she arrived, he was sitting under the mango tree as usual, humming an old folk tune. As she joined him, he looked at her with a smile. You're not just living the dream, Adais. You're spreading it. And deep within her, she knew he was right. With every success came new trials. As Adaise's enterprises grew in scale and influence, she found herself under increasing scrutiny. Competitors tried to sabotage her products. Critics accused her of blurring the lines between medicine and business. Regulatory boards demanded more documentation. Even some members of her own community whispered that she had become too ambitious. It all reached a boiling point when a rival company accused Adaglow Naturals of using unsafe ingredients. A false allegation, but one that forced the company into a month-long investigation. Orders were frozen, distribution halted, staff morale dropped. Adaeze, shaken but not broken, called an emergency meeting with her core team. Chinyere, ever composed, laid out a plan for damage control, while the legal team began collecting evidence to refute the claims. Adaeze spent sleepless nights going over production logs, supplier reports, and customer testimonials. Throughout the ordeal, her mind often wandered to her childhood. She remembered the nights Obina taught her about the value of integrity. Adaeze, a good name is better than gold. If your hands are clean, let the storm come. You will stand. 2 weeks into the crisis, an independent lab cleared Adaglo of any wrongdoing. The findings were made public, and the accusations against the rival company triggered their investigation. Customers and partners returned, more loyal than ever. The crisis, though painful, had solidified her brand's reputation for honesty. But her days had learned an even more profound lesson. Purpose comes with a price. Fame brought expectations, success invited enemies, and leadership demanded sacrifice. She started taking breaks, brief getaways to recharge. During one of these trips, she visited a coastal town known for its vibrant artisan community. There, she met an elderly woman named Mama Coco, who ran a cooperative of widows producing hand-woven fabrics. Inspired by their craftsmanship and resilience, Adaeze proposed a partnership. Soon, Adaglo launched a new product line wrapped in custom-made textile pouches crafted by the widows. Each package came with the story of the artisan who made it, giving customers a deeper connection to the source. The initiative exploded in popularity. Not only did it boost Adaglo's profile internationally, but it also empowered hundreds of women with stable income and restored dignity. At the next Innovation Hub gathering in Umuagu, Adaeze shared the story. True wealth, she said, is not in numbers alone. It is in how many lives your work can touch, in how deeply your success can give others room to grow. The students listened, inspired not just by her achievements, but by her vulnerability. They saw in her a woman who had faced storms and chosen to sail forward. At home, Obina could sense the shift in his daughter. She was no longer just building a legacy. She was becoming a lighthouse. You know, he said one evening as they sat watching the sunset, when I taught you that profit is better than wages, I did not know you would turn it into a philosophy for life. I am proud of who you have become. Adaeze took his hand and smiled. You planted the seed, Papa. I just kept watering it. And as the horizon burned orange with promise, Adaeze knew the journey was far from over. The world still needed more light, and she was ready to shine. News of Adaeze's work continued to spread. She was invited to international conferences, nominated for prestigious awards, and featured in global magazines. Yet with every accolade, she felt a stronger pull to return to the people who first believed in her, the people of Umuagu. It began with a letter from the village's new school principal. The roof of the primary school was leaking and enrollment was dropping. Many children walked several kilometers to attend a school in the next village. The letter was humble, yet desperate. Adaeze didn't hesitate. Within weeks, she assembled a team of architects, contractors, and education experts. Not only would she repair the school, she would rebuild it entirely, with modern classrooms, a computer lab, a library, and even a small health bay. She named it the Obina Nena Academy. in honor of her parents. When the school was completed, the entire village turned out for the commissioning ceremony. Children wore uniforms stitched with pride. Parents sang traditional songs. Elders poured libations in gratitude. Obina, now slower in his steps, stood at the center of it all, with tears in his eyes. Adaeze, he said during the ceremony, you have shown us that the world may begin in a village, but it does not end there. That night, Adaeze sat by the fire with her family. Nena served hot yam and palm oil, while Obina shared stories of his own youth. The stars above felt closer than ever, and for a rare moment, Adaeze felt still. But the return was not just physical, it was spiritual. She began spending more time in the village, offering mentorship to local youth, and investing in community-led projects. She started a health outreach program that trained women as community health workers. She also partnered with local farmers to launch a cooperative that supplied organic produce to city markets. Through all of this, she remained grounded. She still ran her businesses, still met with her board, still flew across countries, but her roots held her. One afternoon, as she was walking through the village market, she saw Ifunanya again, now a teenager, standing proudly behind a stall with jars of honey neatly arranged. You did it, Adaeze said. Ifunanya beamed. I followed the light you left behind. That evening, as Adaeze watched the sun dip behind the hills, she reflected on the journey. The child who once sat on a bamboo mat reciting multiplication tables had become a woman reshaping lives. But she knew it wasn't just her doing. It was her father's wisdom, her mother's warmth, her community's faith. It was the sum of sacrifices and the spirit of service. As the wind rustled through the trees, Obina's words returned once more, soft and sure. Profit is better than wages. Yes, Adaeze thought, but even better than profit is purpose. Years passed and the world changed, but Adaeze's impact continued to grow. Her businesses flourished with integrity and innovation. The Adaglo brand became a household name, not only for its products, but for its values. The Adaeze Obina Innovation Hub expanded into 3 other states, each serving as a launchpad for young dreamers with fire in their hearts. She had become more than a doctor, more than an entrepreneur. She was a movement, yet her life remained rooted in simplicity and service. On the eve of her 50th birthday, the community of Umuagu gathered to honor her. The village square was decorated with woven mats, palm fronds, and colorful lanterns. Elders, children, and dignitaries from around the country came together for a celebration of her life and work. During the ceremony, a small girl approached the stage, carrying a gift wrapped in banana leaves. Her name was Chisom. Shy but determined, she spoke into the microphone. My name is Chisom. I want to be a doctor like Adaeze, and I want to have my own business too. Thank you for showing us what is possible. Adaeze's eyes welled with tears. She rose to her feet, took the girl's hand, and turned to the crowd. This, she said, is the reason I began, not for wealth alone, not for fame, but to light a path, to remind us all that where we start does not define where we finish. The applause was thunderous, yet her voice remained steady. I was once a little girl in this same village. My father taught me that profit is better than wages. But he also taught me something deeper, that true wealth is measured by the lives we uplift, the hearts we heal, and the legacies we leave behind. In that moment, Obina, now aged and seated near the front, gave her a slow, proud nod. Nena smiled beside him, tears glistening in her eyes. As the stars appeared above, the people of Umuagu danced. They danced not just for Adaeze, but for all she represented: possibility, purpose, and power rooted in humility. Later that night, Adaeze sat quietly by the mango tree, the same tree where her father had told her so many stories. She closed her eyes and breathed in the night air. Her journey had come full circle. She had become what Obina once dreamed for her, not just a doctor of the body, but a healer of lives, a builder of dreams, a woman who had embraced both education and enterprise and had given others the permission to do the same. And in the silence of the night, with the crickets chirping softly and the wind whispering through the leaves, Adaeze smiled. Legacy wasn't about monuments or medals. It was about people and purpose. Subscribe now to our YouTube channel